All right, I'm back with another video. And in this video, I want to focus on your theory of change for your organization. And how do you represent that? How do you present that to other audiences externally, internally? What is it, the logic behind your organization? What you are designing all of these efforts, what you're trying to do, and how do you measure that, right? What kind of outcomes you're looking at? So we'll talk more about logic models. In a previous video, I've talked about the importance of telling your story, having a very clear and compelling story. Similarly, you need to be able to tell a clear and compelling story about the different components of your organization, how they work, and how you know that they're working. So let's just jump right into it. So your logic model, we will talk more about what a logic model is, but I want you to know there's over 1 million organizations, closer maybe to 2 million organizations, nonprofit organizations in the United States. And these organizations, just like yours, started with great intentions, started with potentially demand that you saw from the community, a need that you saw in the community, started with expertise and a desire to bring that expertise, to bring that effort to that community that you're serving. But just like in the fictional We Got Y'all from Insecure, a lot of organizations sometimes can do harm. Organizations, it's not all good, right? Some organizations can do harm. Some organizations can lack a sense of clarity and sense of purpose. Some organizations can they may be doing great, but over time, they might not be getting to their potential because of lack of organization and a lack of clarity. And so when we talk about what your logic model is, it is important to have that kind of clarity for yourself as a leader, for your staff, for other people that are going to volunteer, for people that are going to be donors. And this is one of the things that a logic model will do. It'll be a differentiator for you. I'll say that I've worked with so many nonprofit organizations, and it doesn't mean that organizations aren't clear and they don't do good work, but very few actually have taken the time or have the know-how to put a clear logic model together. So it will be a differentiator for you as you do your programs, as you design your work, but also as you pitch your organization for funding. All right, so what is a logic model? So a logic model is basically a way to be able to present your understanding for the different activities that you do and how those are going to lead to a particular outcome for the communities that you serve. So it's a graphical depiction basically of your work and your organization. I love it because a lot of times on one page or on 2 pages, you might be doing a ton of things, but you can be able to represent to people, here's what we do, here's how it connects, all the different components connect, here's the kind of change that we plan to see, intend to see, or that we already see in the community. So it is a graphical depiction of the theory of change for your organization, right? Like, here's what we designed and why we designed it that way, who we're trying to target, and here's the kind of change that we see as a result. So there's a particular structure for how these logic models look. They can be artistically designed in so many different ways, but the logic model is the logic model is the logic model. There's some components that we will cover during this video so that you know how to make one of these. And frankly, the strategic work, the thinking work is the hardest part, but actually putting it into this template or one of these templates, that's the easier part. So you can do that fairly quickly, and you'll have one for your organization. And many organizations do not have that, this sort of strategic foundational document. They do not have that in place, and you will. And so this is why we're having this conversation. So I'm going to let you into an example of a logic model. I'm not saying this is the best logic model, but this is definitely one that this is how they can look. This is a logic model for Teen Sharp. So my wife and I co-founded Teen Sharp back in 2009. We were in graduate school, and we had a desire, and other people, we had a desire to do more for young people in our community. I had experience in navigating the higher ed system, my wife as well, figuring out how to get scholarships, and we wanted to be able to do something for young people. And we also wanted to prepare them for college, but also prepare them for global competitiveness and prepare them for leadership. So we sat down in a coffee shop. We wrote kind of our notes in our brainstorm around what would be the name of the organization, what kind of curriculum would we use, what kind of activities would we do. So we did that, and given that our background at the time, we were in graduate school. We had both had a research background, we had a data and evaluation background. This was kind of more of a natural thing, the kind of thing that we would draft up. So unlike a lot of organizations, we started our organization. This is maybe one of the first few things that we did, where we drafted up this logic model. So first we kind of did the notes on a paper, kind of dreaming, right? When will we do the program, and those kind of logistical pieces. And then we said, well, what is it? Like, what is this organization as a whole, and what are the different components? And then how do we know that they're working? What will we track, for example? So we started in this way, and you can see what I'll share if you look at this is it is probably way too much, right? This is not how our organization looks like at this time, which is still running and serving students 14 years later. But we had a lot of activities listed here. So if you can look over, you can see we want to take them on experiential trips, college tours, field trips. We wanted to teach them about public speaking, and we wanted to teach them about etiquette and so many different things. And we did some of those things, and some of the things that we realized that those weren't what we wanted to focus on. But this is why it's also important to have a logic model, because when you put it all on paper, you can realize sometimes that you're doing too much, or there are things that you have in mind that are nice to do. It might not be what you need to prioritize, and it might not actually connect to the outcomes that you really desire for your community. So maybe you put it on a shelf, maybe you don't do it, maybe someone else does it, and maybe it's something that you do later in your organization. So ours was pretty extensive, and it gave us clarity as we started the organization. And we had to get support. At the time, we were starting our organization in our church. So we had to get someone to say yes to be able to let us start it. So this is one of the things that we presented to our pastors in the church to say, hey, are you okay with this? Is the kind of concept that we have. Are you okay with that? So if you're looking to start something within another organization, or you need some other kind of arrangement or setup, or some kind of endorsement or a board member, right? This is another tool if you have these early as well, that allows some people to kind of see what your vision is or what you're talking about. I bring this other example up because, when you look at what was there before, we will talk about the different components, activities, resources, outputs, outcomes. Those will be staple. They need to be in a logic model. It can look in a lot of different ways, or you could start with the version that I shared that we had. Looks tabular, right? Pretty dense. I said we were in grad school, and you can then have a graphic designer or someone else make a really visually attractive version, a slimmed down version of the logic model. So it can also look like what you see here. Okay, boxes, arrows, squiggly lines, whatever. So just know that the components need to be there. The graphical presentation is really up to you. And you can have multiple iterations for internal use, for public consumption.